Welcome back. This is part 2 of our series where we're dealing with lying, manipulating, someone who steals, someone who's dishonest. They deal in untruths. And so this is a 3-part series, and I know that it can be something that's kind of confusing and hard to understand. So if this is your first video, you're welcome to watch this one through. It stands alone, but you'll want to watch part 1 and then part 3 when that one comes out, because that will be a powerful combination to help you understand what that looks like and how to deal with it and how to recognize it. So last time we talked about the different behaviors that someone has, and I gave you examples of what that looks like and how they're acting, the kinds of words they'll use to show you, like to get you to feel a certain way or to kind of get away with their manipulation. So this time what we're going to do is I want to talk about what happens, like some specific behaviors that happen when someone who lies or is dishonest is a manipulator, what happens when they get trapped into a corner. Because when they get found out, they will use very specific tactics to try to avoid the consequences. I have a lot of experience with this. If you want to hear that story, you'll need to listen to part 1. But it's very, very specific, and it's very identifiable, and it happens over and over and over again. And they may or may not do it in this order, but often there is a specific order. Usually the one where they get angry comes much later, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. So let me go through what these behaviors are, because what they're trying to do is they're trying to avoid consequences or outcomes that they don't want. So let's say they stole something, or they took money from your purse. Then now they're getting found out, they're trapped in a corner. We talked about how they'll try to blame it on someone else or do those kinds of things when it gets to a point where they can't anymore. Nobody else was in the room. This was the only possible thing was that it was them. Now they're trapped and they really can't get out of it. These are the things that they'll do. Number 1, they'll act apologetic for whatever you thought I did, but they'll take no responsibility. So they act like, I'm sorry, but I don't really know what for. And notice, now I'm talking about someone who is more extreme, lying, manipulating, but look at what level you do this at. I do this at, where let's say I'm in an argument with my spouse, and there are things he's saying that I don't like, and I say something that's kind of a little bit of a dig. I say, well, that's because you didn't save me any of the ice cream. And so, of course, I'm making it obvious that that is not a positive thing. And then later in the conversation, he's saying, well, you're blaming me because there was no ice cream. I'm saying, no, I wasn't blaming you. Well, actually, yeah, I was. And yeah, he did eat all the ice cream, but number 1, did I ask him to save me any? Why is it his responsibility to make sure I have ice cream? There are things we can do to be thoughtful with one another, but we do these little manipulation games. All of us do. So it's really important that we start to learn and recognize what really is honest. But, and so think about times when you do this too, where you'll act apologetic. Well, how many times as you or your spouse, you're supposedly resolving a problem you've had or a disagreement you've had, and one party will say, well, I'm sorry for whatever I did. I'm sorry for whatever you thought. Even if you say it super nicely, I'm so sorry for whatever you thought I did. Notice how you're not taking responsibility. And people who are extreme at lying and manipulating, being dishonest, they will do this too. And it's the exact same thing. It's just they do it more often. They do it in bigger levels. They do it over things that are much more, much bigger of a deal maybe. But the truth is, it's all dishonesty. So think about that. And as you listen to these, don't just think, oh yeah, someone else does that. Look at yourself and see ways that you can change too. But again, this is to help you deal with someone who is being really dishonest that you have in your life. Maybe it's someone who has an addiction and they keep struggling with the addiction, so they lie, they steal, they tell you things that are not true, they say they're going to do a certain thing and then they don't, and you keep believing them. So for example, I know of someone who his parents had a hard time not enabling him. And he he would smoke and drink, and which that's fine, that's his choice, but he didn't have a car and he wanted to borrow their car. And they told him, you are not allowed to drive the car if you have been drinking or if you don't smoke in the car. But he consistently would do that over and over again. And each time they would say, we told you not to do that. Don't do that again or we won't let you use it. But they would end up letting him use it again, over and over again. So think about, as I'm telling you these behaviors, do you let them get away with it? Because usually if they're doing this with you, it's because you have let them get away with it in the past. And so if you're wanting more information about this, put in the comments that you'd be interested in having some classes or some videos on how to deal with this, how to handle it in a healthy way so that you're not enabling and so that you stop the behavior, you don't just tolerate it. So another way that someone will act apologetic is they'll go, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. They act like they care about your feelings. That must have been so frustrating for you. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for that to happen. I didn't think that it would end that way. I didn't know you needed that money right away. I was going to put it back, that kind of thing. So acting apologetic for whatever you thought they did, but not taking responsibility. The second thing they'll do is they will have inconsistencies in their stories when they get trapped. When they're trapped, they'll start to try to say, well, but I didn't come in here until after 5 o'clock, after you took your purse out. So they'll start, and then they'll, you'll say, well, I saw you go in there at that time. Yeah, but that was just to go turn on the light, but I came right back out and I didn't. So little by little, they'll have all these inconsistencies. And if you really hold their feet to the fire, they can't prove what they've said because it's not provable, because they've got too many lies and too many inconsistencies in their story, which, inconsistencies is just a phony way to pretend like you're not lying. Because if you have inconsistencies, it's because it was a lie. The story doesn't measure up. Now, it's a different thing when someone that's what they thought. Based on their version of the facts, that's what they thought. Like I saw Susie go into that room when really maybe it was her sister that was wearing Susie's clothes, so she really thought it was Susie. So that's not true that she saw Susie go in, but they thought it was. That's a totally different thing. Okay, so the third thing is changes in behavior. All of a sudden, they'll start being evasive, or they'll start being overly friendly, or overly happy, or overly keeping their room clean, or being a total slob, or they'll come home late all the time when they used to get home on time, and they'll have all these reasons. Well, at work, they needed me to do X, Y, Z. So watch for those changes in behavior, and sometimes it's not negative. We tend to think, oh, if they're getting into trouble, if something's going on, it's going to be a negative behavior. No, sometimes it's over the top positive because they're trying to counteract or balance the scale so they don't get caught out, okay? The fourth thing is that there will be contradictions. And so the inconsistencies are, they change the story a little bit. The contradictions are, I didn't say that. What are you talking about? No, that is not what I said. It'll be that kind of a feel, okay? So let's say someone does have, they're out with their friends all the time. You don't know, maybe they're struggling with an addiction, or they're starting to get involved in a gang, or they're getting into trouble, or an employee has started being dishonest about what time they're arriving at work. It can happen in so many different situations. Then what will happen is they'll start to contradict themselves. And you'll say, oh, but I thought you said you lived 20 minutes away. And they say, well, I do, but I stopped for coffee that morning, and so then this next step happened. Or they'll say they got in an accident, or, I had this little problem with my neighbor, and then you find out their neighbor is their best friend, and you're going, well, wait a minute, I thought you had a problem with them. Oh, well, I did, but it was just a tough thing that particular day. So you see how they are constantly like trying to switch it around, jumping back and forth between things to try to confuse you. The reality is what they're doing is they're trying to stop you from staying focused on the main theme or the main core of what the problem is, that they are late, and so they're jumping around to get you distracted. So the fifth one is they'll act very sad. can't believe you would think that. Like, I mean, there's nothing I can do about it, but I can't believe you would think that about me because, I'm really trying my best. And so it's like to pull out the guilt so that you'll stop asking, because guess what all of these tactics are doing? Distracting you from staying focused on the real issue at hand and handling that one issue. Okay. The sixth one is they'll act like it's unbelievable. They'll shock and awe. Like, what do you mean? Like, there's money missing from the drawer? You thought, like, I left at 5. Like, why would you think I did that? Like, I can't, it's unbelievable. It's not really sad. It's not like, oh, I'm sad. I feel bad that you would think that about me. It's an unbelievable. Like, I'm so surprised. Like, why would you think that? And then the seventh one is they'll act angry. And usually anger comes after all of these others. And so anger is, we all know what anger feels like, but they'll start blaming, and usually in the anger, they twist it around so that you're the one with the problem. In fact, most of these, it's you're the one with the problem. I can't believe you would judge me like that. Like, that's what happened? And you're jumping to the conclusion that it was me? So all of these are getting you to feel guilt, distracting you from the fact that it's actually their problem, not yours. And we all are so busy trying to be good people. We want to be kinder and better and good. And so when that character is challenged by someone, when someone says something that sounds like, well, I can't believe you would think that about me. Now all of a sudden, am I being the kind of person that's judgmental? Am I like seeing them in a bad light and making a judgment that's not okay? So this is part of the problem, and this is why they get away with it. So the anger happens usually after all the other things don't work. If you keep staying focused on the core problem that you're trying to resolve, and it's not like they're not able to get out of it, and you're being super healthy and not letting them jump away and fake something else or distract. So it's staying focused on there. Finally, they have nothing left. So they'll get angry. They'll say, I cannot believe, seriously? Like, I am sick and tired of you acting like, and here's the guilt again, because they're putting it back on you that, oh my gosh, I'm angry that you would do this to me. So see how it's now here's the guilt, and now it's not my fault. Every single one of these is about how it's not my fault. I'm sorry you thought that. I don't know why you would think that. Okay, so look for anger, because anger is usually because you've done a good job holding their feet to the fire and making sure that you're being not enabling and that you're being healthy. But anger will often win. So because nobody likes anger and it feels yucky, and we want to avoid it, we want to get out of that. And it's almost like, okay, if they're super angry, especially, they'll act really angry. And they'll say, I am sick and tired of this. I don't have to put up with this. And that's kind of what they're acting like. And so usually most of us kind of can't handle that. And so we step back and go, they storm out the door or they storm out whatever. The healthy thing is to stay focused on the issue. Say, you can leave as they're leaving. You can leave, but we're still going to deal with this the minute you get back, so that they know they're not getting away with it. And when they come back, they may try to start all over again with all of it. So number 8 is they'll act extremely emotionally healthy. They will act like, oh my goodness, well, I am so sorry. Okay, so tell me what it is that you're feeling like is the problem. Oh, okay, so you didn't want me to take the money from your purse. Well, I'm so sorry, because we're so close. I thought that was okay. So now that I know, I will make sure. Do you see how I'm making it sound like, oh, I'm just so healthy about this, that now that I know, things will be different. When I took money out of your purse without asking, that's an issue. It's not, oh, okay, well, I'm sorry, now I know. No, they're doing the act. They're acting all healthy because they know that it will, distract you from the real core of the problem. And the 9th thing that they will do is they will deny. They will deny it. I did not do that. And it doesn't matter what the evidence shows. It doesn't matter that they were the only one who was in the car and it didn't smell like smoke before and now it smells like cigarette smoke. It's the craziest thing, because you would think, Well, just admit that you were smoking in the car. I mean, that's bad and I won't like it, but that's not as bad as totally lying about it and making a big drama about it. But it's the weirdest thing. People who lie and are dishonest. And when I used to do that, it mattered more to not to get away with it, to not have to admit that I had done something, that it was my fault. What happens is we get into this place where all that matters is that I don't have to take responsibility. That's all that matters. Because for some reason, the what is honest and good and right has gotten twisted, and that is what matters. So just be aware. This is just to help you be aware that those are the kinds of behaviors you'll see. That's the way that they'll act. And in part 3, I'm going to go through how to handle those kinds of situations. All of the different things I've mentioned in part 1 and part 2 of this series, I'm going to walk through each of those and show you how to handle it in a healthy way so that you're not enabling, so that you can be loving and you're being healthy and you're holding to the truth that can only create healthy and better outcomes for them and for you. If what you are doing is healthy, then it will absolutely be what's best for every party involved. Even if it causes pain at the beginning, or it might be hurtful, or they don't like it, or you don't like it, it causes you pain because you have to say no, or because you have to hold their feet to the fire. It is when you handle it in a healthy way that leads everyone in the direction of truth and connection that will allow you to have a healthier relationship. Now, some people aren't ready for that. They don't want to, they won't take the invitation and come into that healthy relationship, and that's okay. That's part of their agency. They get to decide when they are ready to do that, when they want to. But you can be at peace and you can make choices that help you go the direction that's going to keep you in a grounded place, showing love to them in a healthy way without being taken advantage of and without perpetuating and helping them continue this unhealthy behavior where you are enabling it. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you next time.